Hello and welcome to another Garmin Marine webinar. I'm Dow Thornton with the Garmin Marine team. Today's webinar, we're going to talk about advanced settings and troubleshooting for the LiveScope system. This is the second webinar in the LiveScope series. If you would like to watch the first one, please go to our Garmin YouTube channel, and I'll have a link at the end of the webinar. In that webinar, I go over the basic setup, basic installation of the LiveScope system. I talk about the mounting or the proper mounting of the LiveScope transducer to the trolling motor. If you are having issues with your LiveScope orientation of your LiveScope transducer and your trolling motor, and make sure you have it on correctly. First thing we want to talk about with this webinar is the Q2 software updates, and these are coming out in March of this year. I know there's a lot of questions out there. Do I do my software updates? Do I not? I highly recommend you do your software updates. We're constantly tweaking all of our products, but especially LiveScope. If we know of issues out there, we're fixing them. We're coming up with remedies for them. We're adding features, and basically the Q2 software that's going to be released, that really is going to add a few features to the LiveScope system. So the first feature we're adding is the new vivid color palettes. So users can now see the Panoptix LiveScope sonar with the same 7 high contrast vivid color palettes made available on clear view and side view. So the new vivid color palettes came out in the new Striker Vivid series. We have now added them into the Echo Map units and the Echo Map Ultras and the GPS Map series units through a software update. So the new colors include aqua, Caribbean, floodlight, ice blue, lava, moss, and rustic steel. And I'm very excited about the color palettes. I love the new lava color. I think it really helps targets and structure on the bottom stand out. So if you don't have the new vivid color palettes in your Echo Map UHD and Echo Map Ultra and GPS Map series units, do your software update. And in Q2, when this software comes out, it's going to be added to the Panoptix LiveScope. So there's also a new LiveScope setting. There's basically going to be a new layout menu. So under menu, sonar setup layout, you're going to see the new menu pop up. So we're going to have beam icon, on-screen control, reverse range, and compress range. So the LiveScope, first setting we're going to talk about is the beam icon overlay. And this a version of this has always been, even in our first generation of Panoptix LiveScope. A lot of people don't know it's even there. The beam icon displays where the LiveScope transducer is aimed relative to the boat when this is calibrated. And that's the issue. It does have to be calibrated. The beam display now has the option for off, heads up, beam up, or north up. And basically what the beam icon does is it's going to tell you which way your LiveScope is pointing. So originally when I mounted my first LiveScope, I had it on the trolling motor. I was constantly looking at the head of that trolling motor to see which way my transducer was pointing until I did the calibration and I got the beam icon. Now I can look at the chart plotter. I don't have to take my head up. I can see exactly where I'm going with that transducer, which way it's pointing, and I can make my cast. A lot of people now are not mounting LiveScopes on trolling motors. They're using aftermarket brackets and poles, and this is great. This is going to be great for that. So again, you can now orientate this heads up, beam up, or north up, and that is a new feature coming with a new software update. You do have to calibrate. So if you don't do this, you will not see your beam icon. The calibration is strictly for the compass. The compass is only used to show the direction of the transducer and more accurately place transducers waypoints when they're saved on the Panoptix page. So I do have a note down here: when mounted on the barrel of a trolling motor, the calibration won't work due to the magnetics in the motor. So you can try this. Chances are it will not work, but if you, there's no hurt and trying. Normally, the LiveScope, we recommend that transducer be mounted on the shaft of the trolling motor or on an auxiliary pole. Pretty simple to calibrate the compass. When you're on your Panoptix LiveScope screen, you hit Menu, Sonar Setup, Installation, Calibrate Compass. The transducer does need to be in the water, and once you hit begin, you're going to have basically a status bar. It's going to tell you turn the boat 1.5 times in either direction. You want to keep the boat as level as possible. You don't want to go on high. Just keep the boat at a good steady pace, making your circle. And you're going to get a status bar that tells you when you're complete. Once complete, your icon will appear on the screen. Pretty simple to do. Another new feature we added is the hide on-screen control, which this is something we added, I think, a year and a half ago in a software upgrade. We added the on-screen control. LiveScope is completely different than a traditional sonar or side view or down view. On those sonars, you can basically set them, do a little adjusting, and leave it. With LiveScope, LiveScope is something you're going to continually have to adjust throughout the day based on hardness and softness of the bottom, clarity of the water. Conditions out there are changing, which are going to force you to change your LiveScope settings. When we added the on-screen controls, we added on the bottom of the screen where you can quickly adjust your auto range and your gain. Some people didn't like that. They wanted the screen clear. So now we now have, with a new software update, you can now toggle the on-screen control on or off. I personally like mine on, but I know a lot of people like it off. So now you have the choice. That's what it's going to look like off. LiveScope settings reverse range. So there's a new menu option that allows a user to see more or less of the reverse range. What we're talking about, and I'll show you on the next slide, is the transducer cone, basically, of LiveScope. It's a 20-degree forward and 135-degree down. So you're actually can see behind the boat in the forward position. But the new setting will hide. You can hide it. The default, you can put it on default, or you can go the full. And what we're talking about is, again, with the 135-degree beam angle of LiveScope, you do have the capability of seeing behind the boat. Some people like that. Some people don't. Some people like to see forward. I'm one of them. I like all my range forward. If I wanted to see behind the boat, I would go into the down position on LiveScope. Also, the beam angle of Panoptix is 20 degrees forward. And I put this slide in here for a couple reasons. One, maximum range is 200 feet forward and down. Now, that's in perfect condition. In salt water, you're not going to get anywhere near that. Normal setup for Panoptix is casting distance. So if you can cast a lure 40 to 60 feet, set your range at 55 to 70 feet. That's all you need to do. You don't need to look at targets further out. Frequency range. The frequency range is 530 through 1100 kilohertz. These are bursting every second. All these frequencies are bursting every second. Because you have that high frequency range, higher the frequency range, the shallower the penetration into the water. That's why the maximum range is 200 feet in fresh water. But really, I don't expect my LiveScope to see more than 70 feet in the water. With a 20-degree beam angle, you need to remember that at 20 feet, you're looking at a 7-foot span beam angle. The further you go, when you're at 60 feet, which is normal casting distance, your beam angle is going to be 22 feet wide. So if you see fish in that area, they're within a 22-foot beam, port or starboard, left or right of the beam angle. In the beam angle, sorry. And then if you're looking at fish over 100 feet away, you're looking at 36 feet wide at 100 feet, and then the further you go. So if you're at 200 feet out, you're probably looking at fish probably in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 feet out, to left or right of you. So no way you're going to be able to make an accurate cast. So with the new reverse range, again, you can have it on full at 100%, where I can, on this screen, I can see basically almost 40 feet behind the boat. I could go to minimum, which I have 25%, or I can hide, which will go 0%, and all your view is forward. And last but not least, we have a new compressed forward range. This is going to make targets easier to see closer to the boat, and it's going to compress the targets or the range that you're really not focusing on. So you're going to be able to do this with the new software update. One thing I do want to talk about the new Ghost Reject menu. This came out in October of last year in our software update. So if you don't have the Ghost Reject feature, you need to do your software update. The ghost tree issue is a side effect of a strong sonar return, creating interference on the screen. The current solution is using noise reject, which can create a blind spot where the ghost image was located. And I'm seeing a lot of this out there where you have a ghost, people are complaining that they have a ghost reject or a blind spot, especially in shallow water. And really you're getting that beam bouncing off hard bottom and shallow water, which will cause this. So the new ghost reject setting steers more of the transmit power forward, which reduces the bottom return strength and therefore the interference that causes the interference that creates the ghost tree. One thing I do want to make a note of is that supplied in the box with LiveScope, there's an 8-degree cant, and that is the mount that mounts onto the shaft of the trolling motor. And that 8-degree cant there is there really to get that transducer to see around the barrel of the trolling motor. Okay, that's the number one goal. The second goal is it does give you a more of a 3D view of the bottom. Okay, especially in shallow water. There is an optional 0-degree mount out there. It's very popular, especially for ice fishing. But if you add this to your LiveScope transducer in shallow water, that can help produce a ghost tree or a dead zone, especially in shallow water and a hard bottom. So just make a note of that, please. So Ghost Reject, again, it came out in October of last year. You go to your menu, sonar setup, Ghost Reject, and now you have options of low, medium, or high. And hopefully this will help reduce that interference that creates the ghost tree. LiveScope Ghost Reject tips. So again, these are tips and recommendations. It's not 100% absolute, but this is what we found during testing that we would suggest you trying if you're having this issue. So this setting will help the ghost artifacts, especially in shallow water with hard bottom. Okay. The possible trade-off is when you have a long forward range with ghost reject on high, the image may appear to be less smooth. It may come back a little grainy. It also may be more like a slideshow versus a nice smooth video presentation, but it will have less ghost artifacts and can slightly increase your forward-looking range. So 2 settings I recommend trying. If you're fishing in 20 to 30 feet and your range is set forward 50 to 70, noise reject on medium, ghost reject on high, and TVGs to low. If you're fishing over 40 feet of water, noise reject on medium, ghost reject on high, and TVGs off. This is good for fishing, again, over 40 feet of water with a hard bottom and ranges set to around 70 feet or greater. But really, I don't recommend going further than 70 feet. We have found out that low voltage or low power supply will not result in ghost tree, a grainy picture, or otherwise a bad return on the LiveScope system. Go over a few installation tips. And again, I would definitely revert you back to the first webinar on LiveScope where I go over some basic settings and basic tips on installing, especially the black box and the transducer mounting orientation. We do recommend LiveScope minimum wire size for extending the GLS-10 black box to 10 gauge if you're going up to 15 feet. If you're over 15 feet, I definitely recommend bumping it up to 8 gauge up to around 23 feet. If possible, run the GLS-10 power lead as close to the battery. It's 12-volt power switch or a distribution panel as possible. We want good, clean power going through the wires to the LiveScope system. In some cases, it's better to run 2 dedicated lines, one from the battery to the console and then another to the bow. This will help by allowing the maximum voltage and amps the battery can provide. This also helps avoid possible causes of EFI, and EFI causes interference in the LiveScope system. And this is caused by power drains like turning bilge pumps, lights on, aerators on. So on most of our boats, we're turning these on all the time. And if you have all these connected to the same power lead, or if these all are running to your battery, you have all these ring terminals stacked onto your batteries and you throw LiveScope, you're going to cause possible EFI interference and into the LiveScope system. When mounting the GLS-10, please allow for easy access for inspection of all the connectors and the status lights. So there are a series of lights on the bottom of the LiveScope box. Actually, I think there's one light, but it blinks red and green. If you call the help desk wanting to troubleshoot your system, we are going to ask you what those lights are doing. If they're blinking red, blinking green, or how many blinks, this will tell us what the health of that GLS-10 box is. Please avoid any hard bends in both the transducer cable as well as the network cable. This can introduce EFI, noise, and interference into the LiveScope system. We do recommend using waterproof tape to secure the transducer cable to the trolling motor. If you use zip ties, please hand tighten. Don't crank them down. Compressed zip ties too tight can cause damage to the cable, causing cable fatigue due to repeated rotation on the shaft of the trolling motor. And that will introduce possible EFI, possible noise, resulting in a poor picture. And last but not least, leave enough slack or what we call a service loop in the cable to adjust the transducer from the forward to the down position. So let's look at some of the settings. And we all know to get to your settings, you go to your menu sonar setup installation when you're on your LiveScope screen. So color gain. This helps intensify the return targets, such as bait, fish, structure. The higher the color gain is turned up, will help with detecting lures and fish at a distance. Small fish and lures are easier to see at a range less than 60 feet. Increasing the forward range will give less resolution, but it does increase the transmit power, which will help you see your targets better. So again, if you set your range to 70 feet, you are increasing the transmit power, but that will result in a little grainier screen. But if you're looking at fish around 50 to 55 feet and your range is set to 60, you're not putting enough power on those targets. If you're having problems seeing targets, move your range out 5-10 feet, which will turn the transmit power up, which will help see targets and lures closer in. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Noise reject. Noise reject filters incoming noise from the GLS-10 black box and LVS32 transducer. When off, you might see a lot of clutter. If you cannot see your lure, try turning noise reject on medium or high. Medium noise reject setting is a good default setting for most of the anglers out there. Time variance gain. This is a big one. TVGs is a function to help reduce the amount of noise and clutter within the water column. For a cleaner picture that has a uniform sonar return across a distance from the transducer, you can turn TVGs to medium or high. TVGs low is a good default setting that will reduce surface clutter and not impact your ability to see your lure fish, unless you are targeting small fish at a very close range. Okay. In waters less than 20 feet, we recommend turning your TVGs off. Okay. The AHAR system, the Attitude Heading Reference System, we want you to turn this on. This will stabilize the sonar view on the chart plotter even in rough conditions. This is very similar to camera stabilization. This also tells the chart plotter what orientation the transducer is in, whether it's in forward or down. And then again, in orientation, we'd like you to set that to auto. So when you do make that one click turn on the transducer, drop it back in the water, the AHAR system will pick that up and will automatically set on the screen if you're in the forward or the down position. Again, a few tips I'm going to give you. Again, these are all subject to change. We base these settings using the force trolling motor. Different brands of trolling motor will produce different interference in the water, so it can cause you to have to make additional adjustments. The thing I want to talk about is water conditions. Okay, that plays a huge role in the picture quality of LiveScope. Water condition and clarity are both factors that might result in poor returns. So adjusting TVGs or changing the color palettes might help. So if you're in, a heavy silted area, algae, clay, pollen, now, first of the year, pollen blooms, pollen's on the water, a lot of plankton in the water, you are going to have to make adjustments. But in less than 20 feet of water, try turning TVGs off, noise reject on medium or high, ghost reject on high, color gain at 80 to 85, forward range at 30 to 40 feet. And then you can fine tune your gain higher for more detail. But again, LiveScope is a constant adjustment throughout the day. Fishing 30 feet of water, TVGs off. You can turn gain on automatic high or between 60 and 65. Noise reject on low or medium. Ghost reject on high, and forward range set to 50 to 65 feet. Something I'm seeing a little bit more now is the GLS 10 source not found error message. So a couple of possible causes. Check for loose network connections between the GLS 10 and your MFD or chart plotter. If swapping the MFD between two different LiveScope systems or two different boats, so if you have two boats or you ice fish, if you have a portable kit and you're moving that that chart plotter between boats or to your ice fishing kit and back, you may have to try reset layouts or toggle your simulator on and off. This will reset the LiveScope tile on the home screen that is tied to the other GLS 10 black box. So you would go to your settings, system information, reset layouts, restore defaults. So if you are seeing the GLS 10 source not found error message, and you do move your sonar, your Panoptix LiveScope, or if you do move your head unit between boats or to a portable kit, ice fishing kit, try this reset layouts. Dead zones. I'm also hearing, a little more about dead zones, ghost tree, and really what I'm hearing mostly is this in shallow water with hard bottoms. And again, that 8-degree cant that's supplied in the box, that will help reduce that. If you go to the 0-degree cant, I know a lot of people are doing it. I spoke about this before, but that 0-degree cant in shallow water with a hard bottom can help or will cause a dead zone. All right. In shallow water, strong bottom returns will affect the image. At times, this interference will cause the image to look like a dead zone or a ghost tree. Interference of this type may occur at locations where it previously did not happen. Factors such as water type, clarity, again, mineral content, etc., affects the performance of the sonar. The higher the frequency, the more artifacts may appear. So again, adjust your noise reject. This can help reduce dead zone on screen. So try medium or high. But again, as I mentioned time and time throughout this webinar, unfortunately with LiveScope, there is no perfect setting. In the mornings, when the sun's not out, the water clarity during the day changes when the sun goes up. I mean, moving from one spot to another, whether you're fishing, the mouth of a creek versus the middle of the lake, that's all going to make a difference, and you're going to have to constantly adjust your settings. So hopefully you enjoyed this webinar. Again, if you'd like to listen to any of our older webinars or our webinar series where we go over many features on setting your sonar up, different features of the chart plotters, radars, things like that, please visit our YouTube channel and the link provided here. If you have any questions, please email marine.training@garmin.com and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Once again, I'm Dow with the Garmin Marine team. Thank you very much.